Nope, wait.
Okay.
Oh,
Hold on.
he said we couldn't go yet.
Just a second.
Who said this?
The cameraman.
Gotta count you down.
Oh, he's,
All right, we're good now.
Okay, we're good.
okay, the March 14th meeting of the Missouri City Planning and Zoning Commission is called to order. We have a quorum here tonight. I think we're only missing one, John O'Malley. Is that right?
McCray.
And McCray.
And Mr.
And Gaspar. Three misses there. Okay, so if you record that, Nancy, that'll be good. Agenda item number 3, the minutes from February 8th and the 15th. Do I hear a motion that we approve those
So
minutes
moved.
as presented?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on those minutes?
He already knows my comment.
Yeah.
Before we vote on this thing, I want to say that I'm sorry that I had to beg out on y'all last month and miss these meetings, but it just, it couldn't be helped. But in reading through those minutes, I thought that everybody did really a terrific job in putting this all together. And Jennifer, your people, super in there with it. It's hard to put all that together and keep everybody happy, but you've done a good job. And Sonia, you did a fabulous job on directing the traffic, girl. And I appreciate that too.
Herding cats.
Okay.
Candies. Turning candies.
Yes, okay. So moved and seconded, all those in favor? Those opposed? Nancy scratched me because I was not there. Okay, moving on to the reports. I don't have anything to say. How about the rest of the commissioners? Anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to just say I agree on this, on the sign stuff. It was a interesting, good workshop. I think we need to do more of those more often, and the information presented, I think you guys were able to get that format into your plan. I think that's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to hopefully making that easier for everybody internally as well as business people coming in. So
I think all the years that I've been on the Planning and Zoning Commission, those were the most complete minutes that we've ever really had. And certainly with the one area, 27 pages, we did good, you know. But there was a lot of good ideas, a lot of good comments made, and that's how everybody learns. That's how you grow. Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 5, staff reports. Director of Development Services, Mr. Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I'm sure everybody's heard or read the article or seen the news stories that Houston has been found to be the most diverse, ethnically diverse city, large city in the nation. But they found that Pearland, and in particular Missouri City, are far more, as I read the story, far more integrated, far more diverse than even Houston. And in the stories, we were privileged to have the mayor interviewed and even our own Commissioner Anand. And I would tell you what he said, but it seems to me it's better to let him tell you what he said. So if you'll excuse me for a minute.
The Bayou City beat out the Big Apple.
That's good. He's talking, but there's, he's not making any sound. I'm going to have to read his lips for you.
According to a new report from Rice University's Kinder
We can hear it just a little
for
bit.
Urban Research. Researchers looked at census data from 1990, 2000, and 2010. Two suburbs, Missouri City and Pearland, are even more diverse than the city of Houston itself. While Houston is diverse, the city is more segregated than the two suburbs. And for counties, Fort Bend is the most diverse. Minorities make up about 2/3 of the population there. Montgomery is the least diverse. Minorities account for only 1/4 of the population. Well, Houston's business climate has long been noted for being healthier than most, and we wondered how these diversity findings might play a part. So Fox 26 business reporter Tom Ziska has been looking at that for us. Tom?
Now, you might imagine with all of these different cultures represented, there's opportunity to do business with each of them. What we found is a desire to do business with all of them. This time of year, accountant Michael Rose only sees the numbers, but the Missouri City businessman never really bothers concentrating on the different faces he sees in his community. The Rice University findings, he says, mirror his natural expectations of daily life.
When I wake up, when I come to work, it's expected that I'm going to see, different people from different backgrounds, and that's just a part of the everyday 9 to 5.
The study just proved what I think we've known for a long time.
Mayor Alan Owen is happy for the acknowledgement. The city of about 75,000 is a predominantly bedroom community feeding the medical center, the energy industry, with dozens of ethnic identities that eat, sleep, and thrive amongst each other.
Diversity brings growth. It brings restaurants of different ethnic groups. It brings the working environment of different ethnic groups. So you embrace diversity and take advantage of it and utilize it as an economic tool.
You create the environment and it brings in the entire diversity.
Ramesh Anand conducts business around the world from his home base in Missouri City. Since moving here 7 years ago, he says he has enjoyed the benefits of feeling right at home that others would do well to notice.
This is one of the better, less known secrets that they are not aware of, and it's high time they come explore it. And we welcome them.
But the diversity findings appear proof that Houston's opportunities are not completely hidden. Mohammed Sheikh moved here 17 years ago from Pakistan and is part of a thriving community that is increasingly finding a comfortable and accepting home for honest hard work.
I found that if you work within your boundaries, like you work with honesty, you don't do anything wrong, you will find that you will grow very fast.
When we sit down and talk to new businesses coming to our city, we talk about the diversity because that's their workforce. And we want all ethnic groups to feel comfortable here.
The Rice University study says diverse suburbs like Missouri City and Pearland are fueled by Houston's diversity and may be more successful at integrating more people because traditional lines of segregation aren't typically there to keep people roped off from each other.
So I don't know that there's an easy answer to this, but I mean, we know why New York and Los Angeles, those points of entry are quite diverse. Why Houston?
Researchers attribute in large part a 1965 change in immigration law, which allowed people from all sorts of countries to come in legally to the United States. Houston was smaller at the time, so it had more room to accept more people, and consequently those people have had children, and here we are.
So they just chose to come here because there was room to come here and the economy has grown with those populations.
And it continues to be a great place, as we all know.
Yeah, great. Thank you much, Tom.
Hey, Big Bill. Good to see you.
I know at a staff level, we're very thrilled for that recognition that Rice has noted. The character of this community, from my experience here in 4 years, I've noted that the character of the community is one of the most civil, one of the most intelligent groups that I've ever worked around and worked with, and some of the easiest to reason with and to work with. It's a real thrill to have that recognition, and I know y'all know it better than I do. One other little point that didn't make the agenda, if Ms. Thomas would stand up. We don't have a title plate for her, but it has changed. She is no longer a planner 2. She is now the senior planner for the city of Missouri City.
Oh, hey. That do you?
Other than that, that's a very well-deserved change, promotion, recognition for Ms. Thomas. She does a great job for the city. And other than that, I think I should stop so y'all can get on to business.
Well, I think that's right. I think Jennifer Thomas has done a great job over the years, and this has been a long time coming, and I know she's going to go beyond this point. Jennifer, job well done. Okay, moving on. Public Works.
No report, Commissioner.
No report. Okay. All right. Agenda item number 6, public comments. Anybody in the audience that would like to step to the podium and address anything which is not on our agenda for tonight, if you would like to do that, please be our guest. But there will be no comments made by any of the commissioners. As the state of Texas says, we can't respond. So seeing no one come forward, agenda item number 7, the consent agenda. 7A, consider approval of an abbreviated plat for CenterPoint Quail Valley Substation. 7B, consider approval of a final plat for Sweetbriar at Riverstone Section 3. 7C, consider approval of a final plat for Vicksburg Point Section 1. Do I hear a motion that we approve the consent agenda?
Second.
I'd like to request to pull A and C to discuss, if that's
All
possible.
right, you want to pull A
And C,
and C?
if that's possible.
Okay, we'll pull A and C. Is there a motion that we
Motion for
approve?
B.
B. All right, is there a second to that?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on 7B? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, 7B is approved. All right, let's go to 7A.
Yes, sir. This is a request by CenterPoint Houston Energy Electric, LLC, the group that was here approximately 2 months ago and requested a rezoning for a specific use permit to locate a tower there for their automated meter reading systems. At this point, in order to pull building permits, they'll have to plat the property. It was never platted prior. Still going?
It's still on.
Okay.
Just doesn't sound like it.
And so at this time, they're just going through the abbreviated platting process, as no utilities are required here, so that they can pull building permits and erect the tower.
Why was it not platted before?
The previous, or the substation that currently exists there has been in existence since before many of our platting laws and things like that, so it was essentially grandfathered. But now that they're adding new equipment via the tower, they'll have to plat it to be able to pull a building permit.
Right. And the old stuff, they were just hooked on to the electrical part up there.
Right.
Okay.
So then, we had the SUP that we did before was accepted,
Yes, sir, that was approved by City Council.
but it wasn't platted at the time.
No, generally what will happen is the property will go through, if a rezoning is required, we will go through the rezoning process first, because if in this case, there was something already existing on the
Right,
site,
right.
but in the case that you would have vacant land, it would not necessarily be advantageous to rezone the property after going through the platting process, because if you're not granted the rezoning that you're requesting, it may not then make sense to go through the particular
Okay.
subdivision that may have been beneficial before.
Okay. So is everything that we discussed then in the SUP, at least as far as I know, stays in effect?
Yes.
They just end up carving this out and platting it so it's recorded?
Yes, sir.
And then they're going to move forward with the items that we discussed in the,
Yes.
that they did the SUP for?
Yes, in fact, they've already submitted building permit plans to us. One of the major issues pending right now is just the finalization of this plat.
That was the tower, right?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
What
Now, I
time-
think I was just confused which was first. That was
What
fine.
time frame are you looking at for the work out there to begin?
They haven't given us a time yet, but I know that they would like to move as soon as they're able to get the building permits in hand. It's one of their big goals that basically all utility companies are going through, is to get the automated meter readers up and things like that. So it's, I know, a priority for them.
Okay. Because that's where we got the fence and the screening stuff, and then I guess the monopole, if I remember right, is all part of
Right.
this? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that helps me with my question.
Well, council, actually, it'll be a lattice-style
It'll end up
tower.
being a lattice?
Yes,
Okay.
sir, but there will be slats added to screen.
Okay.
And it's-
Make a motion, we approve this. Second.
It's been seconded. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion for consent agenda item 7A? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, consent agenda item 7A is approved as presented. Okay, moving on to 7C.
This is the Vicksburg Point subdivision final plat, the area between Trent and Fresno Road. Okay, and Highway 6. Are there any questions on the staff comments?
Yeah, basically I wanted to pull it because I had some questions with regards to, for some reason I don't remember this coming forward as a preliminary, but particularly with regards to the lift station site, you have a 50 by 50 requirement, but then you have a storm sewer easement that goes through the front of that, right? If the way it's drawn, you have a 20-foot storm sewer easement goes through the front of the 50 by 50 lift station. Is that part of what this question is, where A says reserve, B overlaps?
Yes,
I'm just
sir.
trying to understand. It looks like there's a conflict of easements with the lift station site.
That's
Is that what
correct.
the comments are?
Yes.
Okay. So we didn't have all those easements on the preliminary then, I guess, and so now we're picking them up here?
We had the same comments back in the preliminary plat stage.
So,
yes.
so here we are now with, I guess before we go to a final plat, do you have a feeling that, or a good feeling that they're going to resolve this? Because obviously, you don't want a storm sewer easement in front of a lift station where my only access is coming in from this roadway, and then
Right.
I got a problem.
It looks like that's correct, and the lift station will have access to the right-of-way,
Right.
and it does need to move outside of the 20-foot exclusive storm sewer
All right, so
easement,
they're gonna have to push the lift station
Yes, sir.
back up into the property then?
Yes, sir. And so
Okay.
the lift station itself, the reserve for the lift station will need to be.
And then they'll
at
have
least
an
50
easement across it for a driveway or access easement across the storm sewer easement then, right?
So these issues we've been actively working with the applicant on,
All right.
and the applicants are very well aware.
Yeah,
of
because I
what
see
our
who's on here,
comments are.
because I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
so-
like we don't see Lawrence and his bunch all the time, so.
Right.
But you don't think, obviously, this is not a deal killer for them. I mean, we're going for a final plat here, so.
I
I mean,
don't
obviously,
believe
they're
so.
not here, but hopefully
Right.
you guys are going to work it out.
Yeah, we've just had a conversation with the applicants, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. So they're definitely working hard on their end to resolve these
Okay.
issues, so.
The other thing is on the, and my memory is not great, but a note must be placed on plat to indicate any future removal, replacement, or improvements. Is that typical, or is there a particular issue with this plat that y'all are concerned about?
That, yes, and that's part of the storm sewer and the sanitary easements that are placed on their property.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just to ensure that the city's interest is looked after.
So you're expecting, since this is a commercial property and those easements are so tight to this piece, that they're going to put something there we don't want to be responsible for, or the utility district, if we take over those utilities that were to replace, like a sign or something?
Correct, or landscaping or structures.
Yeah, okay.
And that was an understanding that the city has reached with the developer ahead of time, and they just need to.
Okay. So let me ask this question then from that, and I don't want to take this too long down the road, but has that been our normal policy is that if things are built over easements, dedicated easements, that we make those people that ask for those easements or the properties, that they're responsible for everything on the surface? Is that normal for us, or are we starting to enforce that now?
I don't believe it's normal for us. I
Okay.
think in this particular site, because of the 20-foot exclusive storm sewer easement, that's in, that's in place.
Which pushes everything back.
Right, and the city is concerned that for maintenance purposes in the future, if there are any structures on top of it,
Okay.
that it's a 66-inch pipe underneath it.
Yeah,
It's
that
quite
was going to be my
significant.
next question. So it's going to be pretty deep, and
Yes. Yeah.
which, yeah, you need to push the lift station back, because if we're going to be up against the lift station, okay. Okay, but you thinking Calusa and them are okay with those issues, or they're going to work them out, or else we won't go through the plat then, I guess?
They're well aware of the issues, and we're in the process of working with them, yes.
The TxDOT driveway permit, at this point in a plat, we have to have an updated permit, or are y'all just warning them, or what are we doing? Because it's under a substantive comment.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not used to seeing that either, I guess, so.
Yeah. They did have a permit at one point, and it's been expired. And so we are imposing this requirement onto them for the permit stage. But
But you've got it before us in a plat stage.
right, and that's, I believe they are in the process of getting that, so they're really close at
But-
having that in hand.
But the driveway's not even shown on here, but you guys are telling him he needs a permit for the TxDOT driveway.
That's
So it's-
correct.
Am
Because,
I wrong? Well, I'm just looking, half size is killing me, sorry, guys.
No.
you're doing good.
So I'm just trying to understand, I just see a lot of what I would consider, and I don't have a real big issue with, but I see a lot of engineering issues in here on a plat.
That's
I mean, we
correct.
see kind of the normal ones as we go.
That's correct.
So I'm just trying to understand why now all of a sudden in the planning side, we're dealing with so many engineering issues, I guess. I know they overlap some, but
I think one of the issues or one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of significant engineering comments on this plat is because it's a plat that's going through, well, there's a site next to it. It's called Oyster Creek Crossing, and these two particular sites have to coordinate a lot on these engineering issues, on sanitary, storm, lift station, and driveway.
Okay.
And as these two sites are going through their platting stage, they really have to coordinate a lot.
Okay.
And so a lot of these comments really mirror the other site and what the other site had to go through.
Okay.
So, so in some ways, this particular site, Vicksburg Point, couldn't go through and finalize and addressing their preliminary plat comments until the neighboring site has finalized theirs.
Okay.
And the neighboring site, Oyster Creek Crossing, has taken up sort of more significant frontage along Trammell Fresno and Highway 6. And so, and they happen to, are a little more advanced in their development stage.
Okay.
So that's the reason why, for this particular plat, they still
Well,
have a lot
obviously,
of outstanding
the permit for
comments.
the driveway then is going to, who gets there first? Possibly?
I
Because
think
obviously
this-
being close to this intersection is going to be an issue for TxDOT, right?
Right.
With regards to that property and maybe the next one, right?
Right. They already have a permit,
Okay.
and we just want to put this comment on there as a reminder that they really need to update their permit. From a staff level, we would hate to see any additional delay for
Okay.
their development process. So,
Well, I understand now. That makes a little more sense to me. Okay.
Okay, you satisfied?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously want to make sure that the applicant's going to be able to handle all this and we don't kill the project just from, I think engineering questions are important where they overlap, but I don't want the engineering stuff to shut him down totally that he can't resolve it with the plat, because I know they got to kind of go hand in hand, so that was just my concern. I just didn't understand how it was all related. Okay, no, I appreciate the,
thank you. I understand. I mean, this is part of the twin sites that had been ongoing for the last 2-3 years, and they've it's been sort of stall and go, stall and go.
Okay.
So a lot of these comments have been pretty much repeated comments.
Yeah, okay.
That the applicants for both sites have been dealing with,
okay.
and a lot of it is coordination issues.
Okay.
And that's why there are many that are remaining.
Well, good. Obviously, anything we can get to work for businesses to come in there, if it makes sense, we want to do that too. So, all right. Well, great. I appreciate the
Yeah, thank you.
comments.
Okay, do I hear a
Make a
motion?
motion, we approve 7C.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on 7C? Everybody understand what we're doing here? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay. 7C is approved. Moving on to agenda item number 8.
Going to do all these together?
All but the conceptual plan.
Okay.
All right, agenda item number 8A. Consider approval of a concept plan for Sienna Village of Bees Creek, sections 7, 13, 14, and 18. Do I hear a motion that we approve the conceptual plan?
So moved.
All right, is there a second to that? Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the concept plan?
I have a question.
Yes.
I think, again, this is some, and maybe this goes back to the same thing. There's obviously some engineering issues here with all these sections tying together. And you guys have some comments in here I'm not used to seeing, particularly with the variances for sanitary sewer line depths, and then also that they're not showing the surface water line. On that issue, the easement for the pipeline is something I guess you guys know about, but their surveyor didn't know. Probably goes with the surface water line you know about. But my issue is if I'm looking at a conceptual plan and you're making comments on the sanitary sewer, I don't see any of that on here. So is there something else right in the background on this that you guys have seen, or? I'm just trying to understand the process of this comment with regards to what's coming before us.
Well, in addition to the plat, they also submit preliminary utility plans and drainage plans that engineering reviews, but the commission doesn't receive copies of that.
Okay.
And so some of those comments are in reference to those items.
Is this partially timing too, since we're going to do all the plats, all the preliminaries immediately?
Okay, so, and that will drive down my other questions is obviously the sanitary sewer issues, I guess there's some depth issues, whether they're too shallow or something.
They were too deep.
Oh, they're too deep.
And it's uncommon. It's,
Oh, you mean
that's
they're
why
trying
you
to
haven't
save a
seen a
lift
whole lot of
station?
them.
So they're trying to save a lift station or something about that?
The city requires that any sanitary sewer that are deeper than 18 feet require variance. That way we can take a look at why this is so deep and what kind of, safety issues and what kind of easement width could, have to.
So we can actually get to it?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, and so that's a standard city requirement, but for sanitaries to be that deep, it's fairly uncommon.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Because usually we do go and lift it and then go to the next plane. Okay.
In this case, and Jennifer, it's correct that the preliminary plats are submitted the same time as the concept plat, the concept plan. And a lot of those, for example, the surface water easement issue, that is something that it's fairly significant. It needs to show on the concept plan itself, in order to see where the sections fit in and what to avoid and such. But we also happen to have the other, the sanitary depth information that was submitted along with the preliminary plat. So we don't want to approve the concept plan unless those significant issues are addressed. And that's why those particular comments are on the concept plan
so
comments.
Obviously potential conflicts between depth and then adjacency to the surface water line as well?
Yes, sir.
For deconflicting as well? Okay.
And the roadway easements and.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's kind of all I had then. That makes sense to me.
Are you okay with that? Okay. Moving on.
So we just need to, that was my discussion, so now we just need to vote on the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on it? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, we've approved sections 7, 13, 14, and 18 on the concept plan. And agenda item 8, B, C, D, and E, we need to approve those all together. There's no sense to do it individually. Let's see, do I hear a motion that we approve the preliminary plat for section 7, 13, 14, and 18?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that? Anyone? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, that's approved. B through E. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 9. Consideration of the adoption of a preliminary report. Consideration of the adoption of a preliminary report on proposed amendments to Section 9 supplementary district regulations contained in the zoning ordinance and pertaining to the city's regulation of trash disposal areas.
This is your first look at this item, and the purpose tonight is for you to look at it, see if you want to consider calling a public hearing at the next meeting. We have had requests from the large lot subdivisions on the south side of town to not be held to the same standard for screening trash cans. It's not a placement issue, it's a screening issue. Because when we go out and we look at those large lots, they don't necessarily have privacy fences around the lots. They're set well back from the street, and they're not within 15 to 20 feet of their neighbor or less. They're quite a distance from their neighbor. To require them to put the trash can in an open area or to put it so it would not be visible from the roadway, they might have to put it behind the house. To put it behind the house, then they have to bring it around and take it all the way out to the street. The council members who have heard these pleas have indicated to me that perhaps we should consider lessening the standards for large lot subdivisions. I chose an acre, if I got the square footage right. If you're an acre or larger, you don't have to screen it, but you can't, we really don't want it left in front of the garage. We want it to the side or the rear of the house. You don't necessarily have to grow bushes to keep it behind because of the separation from the roadway and the separation from the neighbors. If you are on less than an acre of land, you have to deal with it just like you're in a townhouse or in a patio home or in the standard residential lot. You must screen it. You must screen it from public view. This fits closely with what City Council at their last meeting gave the code enforcement officers discretion to issue warnings to folks on their first violations. And when I say first violation, that means they're not in our system. If somebody's in the system and has been taken to court for having their trash can out too early or too late, or if they're in the system for not screening their trash can, then they've already been warned and they've gone through the educational process. And they've done it the hard way. City Council's directed us in appropriate circumstances to have discretion and issue warnings for those folks who are the first time they've had the problem. You've had the problem before, won't apply. So this fits with that. It's a lessening, but it's because of the circumstances, and we have had photographs of homes on the large lots. Bringing this to you for your consideration, whether or not you want to take it forward to a public hearing. Love to hear your comments.
Trash disposal area. I get to look at that and say, okay, that's an area. So that could be as big as a baseball or small as a golf ball. I mean, I'm just being funny. But
I understand your comment, and that is unfortunately the term that we have defined into the zoning ordinance right now. And rather than trying to review that, we will take the view that if you're going to pile up a collection of junk and trash, we're not going to consider that having a trash can beside the carport, beside the garage, or to the side of the house. We're going to consider that a junk pile, and we will seek to abate that nuisance as we would under all nuisances as high weeds.
okay, and that would then be more of a kind of a discretionary type call on what it is, because somebody could throw, what I was thinking about, Gary, is somebody throw a mattress, 3 or 4 other things out to the side like that.
If we see things like that, I would think my code officers would take a good look at it and say, that's not what I expect to see. It's way off the street. I'm going to send them a notice. And then if it doesn't disappear by the next heavy trash day or the next trash day, there will be further action taken. So it fits within the discretion of good sense in enforcing the ordinance.
Okay, okay. Because some people can get awful persnickety about things like that, and then all at once you're in, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate on this, and all at once you're in a dogfight with them because you're saying a trash area, and they're saying, well, that's my area, you know, and define me the area then.
Unfortunately, I don't have the zoning ordinance. That is a defined term within the zoning ordinance. Sure. And I know that Ryan worked very hard to pull together a meaningful term that we could use. That includes the trash enclosures. But I understand your point, and somebody will try to play that.
I know it's going to happen.
Would it still a little bit better if it said trash, excluding heavy trash or junk waste?
Well, when you say, the problem is, when you start saying normal trash, what's normal to you, it may not be normal to them.
Yeah.
That's a point. I'm just wondering if until we get it defined better than just a trash area, maybe there's something we could put in there as a wording that would be a little bit more depictive of, we don't want a bunch of junk stacked up at the side of the building.
We certainly have until the next meeting to bring you a better definition of the area that is allowed, or what's allowed to be exposed in large lot subdivisions. It could be a limited number of trash containers, whether they be trash cans or trash bags with yard clippings in them.
Dumpsters?
We don't allow dumpsters in residential areas. That's specifically excluded in another portion of this that's not, that you're not looking at right now.
I guess my only thing is if you live in a large lot and you have, I guess I'm trying to understand where we're going with being the trash can police. I don't know how else to call it, but we obviously have an issue with trash being left out because it becomes a nuisance, it spreads all over the place, potential health hazard, safety hazard, all that, I assume.
And aesthetically, it's not pleasing.
Sure. So then
especially when it's at the foot of your driveway that your neighbor put out there, and you have 3 feet between the drive curbs.
Right. But I have a large lot place that has usually a fairly large home on it and everything. Why do I have a problem of not taking care of my trash can like everybody else? I'm going the other way. Is why should we accommodate them? I mean, you're living in a fairly large lot, and yeah, you got a home, you got a septic system, you got water and all that. I'm sure, number one, they're HOA if they have one, and I have a feeling I know which group this is. But
well, I think
why aren't they already probably have an issue with trash cans? Why are we relaxing something that we have for everybody else? I guess I'm just trying to understand.
It is more than one group.
Okay.
But they take them, they're set back. Generally, they're not visible. They're the oddball ones that wind up visible, but it's because of the unique nature of each house. You have a lot of houses have no shrub on the side of the house, may have a carport. They've tried to put them behind the pillars that are there, but if you drive down the street, you're going to get to an angle where you're going to see it.
Keep them in your garage and keep your door closed until you put it out like everybody else. I
think maybe I can say something on that. These people have come before the council.
Yeah.
And the council is saying, okay, we see a gray area here. And I think the council's asking us to see if maybe we can accommodate the gray area, because it's probably, to you and I, it would be a problem because we're not, well, to me, because I wouldn't be in that area. The neighbor that's there probably was one of the people that griped about it too, so they're not worried about it too much. I really think that possibly they've got a point, and they brought it before the city and asked for that, because we can't just make it, in my opinion, we can't just make it a.
Right. But what staff is asking us to do on tonight
So you're
is
asking
to
us
call a
to
public
call a public
hearing.
hearing or not? Now,
That's right.
do we have an option not to?
Sure.
I mean,
You
can we
have
just
the op-
table this and say, we don't even want to consider this?
You could endeavor to do that, but I suggest if City Council wants to see this amendment, you will consider it. You could give a negative recommendation, and City Council could exercise their discretion after receiving your recommendation, one way or the other.
So at this point, we should just call a public hearing.
Well, number one, we got A, which is consideration of the adoption of preliminary report, and then 2 is the public hearing, right? So,
Well, and we just, I put it on that way just so you would have it, so we could
no,
talk about
I
it.
agree, thank you. I'm just,
Well, we don't agree with the wording. I think
my
we're clear on
whole
that.
problem is whatever the wording says is, we don't want to see your garbage sticking out no matter where you are, because if it's obviously visible enough, no matter how far back you are from the roadway, unless you've got a 45-acre ranch, I mean, why can't you contain your garbage disposal area? I don't understand that. And if you live in a large lot and you don't want to drag it down to the road, then I don't know what, I guess I just don't understand why that's a problem. So I guess what I'd like to say is, my thought is if I drive through a large, and we're on building some large lots where they're putting very nice homes on. In fact, it's a gated large lot community, and they make everybody buy a specific trash can for the large lot community that has their signia on it, and everybody contains it until it goes out. I mean, that's part of their HOA. So I'm just wondering why we're going through all this to create more paperwork and more issues. I mean, if the thing is to give them a break from the enforcement on the first time so they all are aware when we did our trash can sweep, obviously this is part of that.
Well, no, this is a bit separate from that, because this is not a warning. This is an exemption. If you're on a large lot, you don't have to hide your trash can when you have it behind the front line of your house. If you're not on a large lot, you do. It's a distinction over the size of the lot, and I certainly understand your concern that it gives a different treatment of one group of citizens as opposed to another group of citizens, which is the size of the lot.
Well, tonight, we're just going to determine whether we want to have a public hearing,
No,
right?
we're considering the adoption of a preliminary report.
Well, I think Gary said that he.
Then
put-
there's a public hearing after that. That's what's on the agenda.
Well, let's vote on it and see how we feel about it.
I mean, all I want to do is, yeah, I think we need to go through a public hearing, but I'm just trying to get more background, because
Well,
honestly, I don't
think the
watch
feedback-
council meetings all the
I
time.
think the feedback to staff is that we're uncomfortable with this wording as it stands.
Yeah.
We're uncomfortable even with the concept of doing this.
Absolutely.
But, you know, we have to go through the process, I guess,
Yeah.
which means call a public hearing, and then we can vote
Then we
our
can vote it down.
opinions
We can vote
at that
it,
point,
yeah.
and also we'll have feedback from the public, hopefully, on that.
I will tell the commission, this has not been discussed, with my recollection, has not been discussed at council meetings. Council has mentioned it during the discussion on the discretion of warnings. The issue came up at HOA meetings with some of the large lot subdivisions. That is the genesis of it.
I almost wouldn't have a problem with it if it was maybe speaking more of a broader audience, because I hear the same complaint all the time, but it's more so coming from people that have ADA compliance problems or health issues and they can't manage it.
Oh, that would-
So, but,
Yeah, I mean, that
right,
maybe.
you know,
possibly.
maybe I would probably agree to it today, but I'm really agreeing with you. I don't get it, so.
And on that
Sorry.
side note that's not attempted to be captured here, if somebody has a difficulty that prevents them from complying,
Yeah.
we want to know about that.
Sure.
And we will work with them on that.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you need from us? Some type of motion?
I think
or-
I'll make a motion that we
Let
call a
me-
public hearing.
Let me make a comment here at the end of this thing. Going back for a number of years, the trash disposal problem has been a big issue. And there's no question about that. Because people set garbage cans in their front yard. They set them in their front yard in the flower beds. They set them on the side of the houses. And the tops are off of them. The garbage things are sticking up in the air. So I can understand why this has become such a major issue as of today. But I think what McCray said a while ago is food for thought. It's probably very smart to give these larger lots a little bit of extra, you know. Again, I remember years ago when I first moved here, I couldn't believe it because I came from Hunter's Creek where you didn't put anything out anywhere. And, but I walked in here and my next door neighbor on one side, and they had all kind of mess out there. So it's an issue today, and it's going to be an issue as time goes on, and we're going to have to work with it and better define what we're really talking about. And that's, to me, that's the main thing. And I agree with the comments that have been made here tonight. It's a problem, but what does that problem mean? And how do we turn it around to our benefit?
Yeah, to everybody. I mean, I want to
That's
make
right.
it fair for everybody.
That's right. Okay, is there a motion that we call a public hearing?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion on the public hearing? Everybody understand what we're doing? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Looks like we're going to have a public hearing.
But I presume that the wording will be looked at pretty clearly.
Yes.
Good to know. Okay. Good enough.
I sure hope those people show up so we can hear what's going on.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what.
Of course, you can't make them, can you? Do you anticipate they'll be here?
We can put the word out.
Well, you don't have any choice, do you?
Well, we have to advertise it.
Right.
We have to post it online, we have to post it on the bulletin board. Unfortunately, we cannot often compel people to attend a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. There's only one place where we try to compel people to attend, and that's our very strict educational area called municipal court.
Well, wouldn't this go to the HOAs of these larger, larger areas? And it seems like that they would take a great deal more interest.
We certainly will circulate it with them, and I believe two of you were at a meeting Monday night? Yes, Monday night. Monday evening when our rule on leaving your trash can on the curb was challenged. When I said you had to get it in by midnight, and I was told, no, it has to be in by 6. And
Yeah.
I said, well, no, that's an HOA rule. Our rule is midnight. Not that I'm sending officers out at midnight to check or at 11:30 to check, but somebody from the HOA may be watching. So even if we if we lessen our standards, if the HOA doesn't lessen their standards, the issue still continues for that neighborhood. And that neighborhood should indeed set its standards where that neighborhood wants its standards. We should do things that are reasonable for our citizens. And certainly your input is important in making that determination, and that decision in your report to the City Council will be important on that. It may be considered a quality of life issue in that you have different expectations if you're on a large lot. Maybe it's not a different expectation, but that's where those who set the rules drive that.
Well, I'll tell you one sure thing. Monday night, they jumped on that in a hurry, didn't they?
Yes.
quick like a bunny. Okay. Adjourned. Let's go home.
Good night, gentlemen.
Sorry, guys.